I stood in the doorway of the hospital room, hands trembling, jaw locked tight. There sat Ashley, my wife of 6 years, glowing in her bed and cradling a newborn child that did not belong to me. She looked up with a smug, satisfied curve on her lips and softly asked, "Can you take me to see Matthew? I want to show him the baby he made." Every word hit like a bullet. Not our baby. His. I walked in slowly, numbly watching the nurse smile with a congratulatory look, completely unaware of the poison in the room. Reaching for the official birth certificate, sitting neatly on the bedside tray, I locked eyes with Ashley and tore the paper directly in half, then again and again, letting the white pieces flutter to the cold floor like ashes. When her father lunged from his seat in the corner to scream at me, I ignored him entirely, grabbed the hospital deposit paperwork from the drawer, shredded it into scrap, and slipped my original payment check safely back into my coat pocket. Ashley's smug smile shattered into absolute panic. I leaned down until my mouth was inches from her ear, whispering, "You slept with that alpha gym rat, and now you expect me to raise his child." Her face drained of all color before blotching red with pure embarrassment, and right there in front of her father and the staff, she burst into hysterical tears. Her father charged again, swearing at me, but I shoved him back with one arm, looked Ashley dead in the eye, and said, "You wanted to live like a queen. You can, but not with my crown." Security was called down the hall, but I turned on my heel and walked straight out into the rain without ever looking back. How had my life devolved into a background role in another man's narrative? The rot started 8 months prior. Ashley began coming home past midnight, offering flimsy excuses about extended book clubs and distressed friends. She bought expensive, revealing lingerie I had never seen, started spritzing a sweet citrus vanilla perfume I openly detested, and kept her phone clutched like a prized possession, always flipped face down with notifications muted. The denial ended the night I came home early from work after a meeting was cancelled. Walking down the silent hallway, I heard her laughing softly inside the half-decorated nursery. She was sitting in the wooden rocking chair, holding her phone to her ear, whispering, "Do you think she'll have your dimples?" Hearing her talk to another man about a child we were supposed to be building a family around broke something fundamental inside me. I didn't confront her that night. I walked back out to my car and sat in the dark for 90 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles bled and skin tore. I decided to wait until the baby arrived to see if she would ever own up to the betrayal. She never did. The night of the hospital breakdown, I couldn't go home to an empty house filled with her things. I drove aimlessly down interstate highways before checking into a rundown motel, staring at the cracked ceiling and haunted by the memory of her asking me to drive her to her lover. By morning, the initial shock had hardened into cold, calculating determination. I drove back to our house, grabbed a heavy crowbar from the garage, and went straight to her closet. I pried open the locked wooden drawer at the bottom, where she kept her private items. Inside was a small leather diary, filled with dates, heart icons, and detailed logs of her years-long affair with Matthew, the arrogant personal trainer whose high-priced salary I had been paying every single month. Beside the diary was a flash drive, labeled with gym notes. Plugging it into my laptop revealed dozens of video files, documenting their rendezvous. I packed a single bag of my essential clothing, left the house behind, and went straight to a top-tier divorce attorney. I presented the video files, the diary, and the torn paperwork. My lawyer assured me that with this level of evidence, I could protect my financial assets completely and sever all legal ties. I signed the initial filings and prepared for her hospital discharge day. When Ashley finally stepped out of the hospital doors holding the baby, flanked by her protective father carrying the bags, I was waiting in my car parked right by the curb. I stepped out, cold and unbothered, and handed her a thick manila envelope. Inside were full divorce papers, property division demands, and an absolute paternity waiver. When she screamed in disbelief and demanded to know how I could do this, I informed her that I had already taken digital copies of every text, video, and diary entry and sent them directly to Matthew's wife, Claire. Matthew wasn't just a free-spirited trainer, he had a wife and 2 young children back in Ohio. Ashley turned ghost white as I added that Claire was already booking a flight to town to meet the woman who helped destroy her household. Leaving Ashley sobbing on the curb while her father shouted empty threats, I got into my car and drove away. That evening, I received a crisp, direct text from an unknown number. "I'm Claire. We need to talk." We arranged a phone call, instantly connecting over the shared, brutal devastation wrought by our selfish spouses. We talked for over an hour, piecing together the timeline of lies, late-night training sessions, and fake business trips. As we shared our anger, a clear plan took shape. 2 days later, Claire flew into town, and we met at a quiet downtown coffee shop to coordinate our next move. Ashley had been texting me desperately, so I agreed to meet her at a high-end restaurant under the pretense of discussing a settlement. Meanwhile, Matthew believed Claire was meeting him at the same location for a private attempt at reconciliation. Instead of separate meetings, Claire and I rented out a private room at the back of the establishment. When Ashley and Matthew walked in hand, smiling as if they were starting a new life, they froze dead in their tracks. The color completely drained from their faces as they saw the 2 of us sitting side by side at the table, calm and waiting. Claire calmly tossed a thick envelope onto the table, containing bank records, joint account transfers, hotel receipts, and garage security footage. When Matthew panicked and attempted to claim he hadn't known Ashley was married, I shut him down immediately, reminding him that he had literally been inside my house, helping me move heavy equipment months ago. When Ashley broke down crying, trying to blame her choices on pregnancy hormones and emotional neglect, Claire ruthlessly exposed her lies, revealing that Matthew had repeatedly promised to leave his family for her. Hearing this, Matthew snapped, frantically blurting out in front of Ashley that he had never intended to leave Claire and that Ashley was just a side distraction. Ashley collapsed into a chair as the brutal realization hit her that Matthew had played her just as thoroughly as she had played me. Claire stood up and informed Matthew that she was taking their kids, retaining the marital home, and filing for immediate divorce in Ohio. I stood up next, reminding Ashley that my attorney had officially filed the non-paternity action, leaving her with 0 financial support, no alimony, and complete personal responsibility for her child. Leaving the 2 of them screaming at each other amidst the smoldering ruins of their secret fantasy, Claire and I walked out into the cool evening air together. In the frantic days that followed the restaurant ambush, Matthew's high-priced attorney tried to intimidate me by sending a formal cease and desist letter, threatening legal action over alleged privacy violations and defamation. My lawyer laughed, instantly countering with formal legal claims for intentional infliction of emotional distress and civil fraud, while fully backing Claire's right to use every piece of documented evidence in her state divorce proceedings. Facing complete financial ruin and exposure, Matthew's counsel backed down entirely within 48 hours. When Ashley showed up at my front door a week later, in tears, looking pale and exhausted while holding the baby, begging for just 5 minutes to explain herself, and confessing that Matthew had completely abandoned her to save his own skin, I held my ground. I stepped out onto the porch, closed the door firmly behind me, and looked down at her. I reminded her of the 6 years of quiet loyalty she had thrown away for a cheap thrill, told her that actions finally have consequences, and walked back inside, turning the lock. I stood with my back to the door, listening to her quiet sobs fade away down the driveway until the street went silent. I spent the following month methodically clearing out every remaining ghost in the house. I purged every joint photograph, every piece of furniture she had chosen, every handwritten note, and every gift from our 6 years together into a giant commercial dumpster. I entered intensive therapy, processed the burning rage and deep embarrassment, and slowly began the hard work of rebuilding my life from zero. I threw myself back into my career, traveled out of state to clear my head, and focused on physical and mental strength. A full year after the divorce decree was finalized and the house was sold, I returned to the local gym where the affair had originally started. I walked in not out of anger, but to close the loop on my past. As fate would have it, Matthew was there alone in the wait area, looking visibly aged, out of shape, and disheveled without his former confidence. When he spotted me, he froze, swallowed his pride, and attempted to walk over to offer a quiet apology. I didn't let him speak. I cut him off instantly, telling him in a flat tone that I didn't want his words, his guilt, or his late closure. I simply wanted him to live every single day with the absolute wreckage his choices had created. I turned my back on him, loaded the barbell, and completed my training session without giving him another second of my life. Eventually, Ashley tried to break the silence one final time by sending a message from a burner number, complaining about her struggles as a single parent, and asking what she was supposed to tell her daughter when she grew up, and asked where her father was. I looked at the screen, felt absolutely nothing, deleted the text permanently, and moved forward into my new life completely free.